two high courts, namely Gujarat High Court and Madras High Court, had given contradictory rulings on the subject. Gujarat High Court case, it opined that the explanation of the Rule 89(5) of the CGST rules, which denies the refund of unutilized input tax paid on input services as part of input tax credit accumulated on account of inverted duty structure, is ultra vires of the provision of Section 54, subsection 3 of the CGST Act 2017. While the Madras High Court had given its ruling as the extension of benefit of refund only to the unutilized credit that accumulates on account of the rate of tax on input goods being rather than the rate of tax on output supplied by excluding unutilized input tax credit that accumulated on account of input services is a valid classification. Now, recently, Supreme Court has pronounced the most awaited judgment by the industry at large, in which the uncertainties in case of refund in inverted tax structure has been put to an end. Dear participants, to deliberate on the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court judgment, we have with us today's eminent speaker, Advocate Ishan Patkar. But before deliberating on the same, I would like to introduce him. Mr. Ishan Patkar is an advocate practicing in Bombay High Court. He is a chartered accountant by qualification. He practices in commercial and civil laws, appearing before NCLT in arbitration, etc. He also appears before various forums in matters related to taxation law. He worked under senior advocate Mr. V. Sridharan as his junior for 2 years in service tax, excise, customs, and VAT litigation. Before starting counsel practice under Mr. Gautam Ankhad, advocate in civil and commercial law side. His book on GST Law Guide has been published by Taxman in August 2017. Another book on concept of supply by Bombay Chartered Accountants Society was published in 2018. He has published a digest on judgment of Supreme Court, Bombay High Court and Maharashtra Sales Tax Tribunal 2009 to 2014 through the Sales Tax Practitioner Association of Maharashtra. He was also member of Indirect Taxes Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He is member of Indirect Taxes Committee of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, Managing Committee member of Goods and Services Tax Practitioner Association Maharashtra, and All India Federation of Tax Practitioner Western Zone. Founder Secretary of Confederation of GST Professional and Industries. He has addressed numerous seminars on GST organized by various forums and associations, regular contributor on GST and VAT in various journals. Now I request sir to take over the session, please. Sir.
Thank you, Prashant. I hope I am audible.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay, I just want to share that judgment. How do you this share? This one is not coming. 1 minute. Can you share the judgment? Prashant,
yes.
Do you have a that judgment? Can you just share it on screen?
I will try to, sir. You can continue.
Okay, just because I want to show some things from it. Just आप डाउनलोड कर लो. आपके पास नहीं होगा तो मैं आपको अभी भेज देता हूँ व्हाट्सएप पे.
मेरे पास है, मैं आप ट्राई करता हूँ अपलोड के लिए.
See, I have actually got a lot of messages from various people ever since VKC was announced. A lot of people got, I don't know why, they got very shocked. They thought that ये मैटर तो होना ही चाहिए. गुजरात हाईकोर्ट ने हमारे फेवर में दे दिया, मद्रास ने बराबर नहीं दिया था जजमेंट, और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ऐसे कैसे कर दिया. क्या one person तो wrote a very big message on injustice and how courts are pro-revenue, etc. My view is that the judgment is very correct. Just now, 1 hour back, some very senior person was telling me, ये judgment बराबर नहीं है. Senior chartered accountant was telling me. I told him that it's a well-reasoned judgment, and according to me, the view taken is correct. It may result in injustice. It is resulting in injustice. In effect, there is, according to what we think, that refund of the input services, whatever is under inverted duty, according to us, it should have come. That it is not coming is, of course, an injustice. But you see, when you are arguing, when you are saying that a rule or a section is ultra vires or unconstitutional, Mere showing of injustice does not suffice. You have to show that they have no power to do it at all. As long as they have power, they can do injustice. Because in tax legislation, you can never achieve what is called a perfect legislation. They will have to balance various factors. It's a complex subject, making a tax law. They will have to balance various factors, as I said, various considerations. There is, of course, there will be always be one product which is under 18%, second product which is under 12%. Now, can the 12% guy say, "Mere saath injustice hua hai?" So, really, that definition of injustice itself has to be looked at. Merely because you have to pay you have to pay more tax does not mean that it is injustice. That is what the honorable judge also says when we'll see the judgment. That is what he says, that all things said and done, this is a policy matter whether they want to give you. If you assume that they wanted that under the act, refund of input services under inverted duty, according to your interpretation of 54(3), वो मिलना चाहिए था, then you can say that Rule 89(5) is ultra vires. That also he has rejected. However, if 54(3) allows them to restrict the quantum of credit refund that which you will get, then Rule 89(5) cannot be challenged. Now, the wisdom behind doing that, the judge has also pointed out, in fact, that it may not be the ideal principles which are there behind GST. This does not fulfill those principles. But then he says specifically, and we'll see that, he says specifically that tax legislation, you can never achieve perfect ideal legislation. They will always have to compromise somewhere or the other. And it is a simple question that government wants to raise revenue, they they don't want to give you the refund. So, okay, you can't just say that this is therefore unjust and therefore ultra vires and has to be struck down. So we should always keep that in mind. Whenever we read any judgment on unconstitutionality or we read any judgment which is relating to ultra vires, a lot of us have the tendency to get very flustered saying कि अरे ऐसे कैसे लिखा, ये तो unjust है, ये बराबर नहीं है, ये तो ना इंसाफी है. In tax there is no insafi and na insafi. There is, in tax, the only question is whether there is power or there is no power. Once there is power, they have the right to do anything they want, except if there is, for example, if an exemption is provided only to men, not to women, or exemption is provided to one religious denomination, not to others, that is the kind of discrimination which Article 14 will hit. However, that the chappal comes in 18%, not 12%, that has never been a ground to strike down any tax legislation. That kind of thing they can do. Also, as we'll see, 54(3), that is the view the judge has also taken. It was always a 19-20 matter, according to me. We had in CGPI, we had this intensive going on for almost, I think, 1.5 months. And we discussed this BKC as well as that TVL judgment of Madras High Court. We had a very long discussion, I think almost 2 days we discussed this issue. And the entire study group, we could not arrive at a conclusion that either BKC is correct or Madras High Court is correct. It was always, as we say in Hindi, 19-20 matter. So it was never apparent on the face that this rule, that the government lacks the power to bring in this rule.
Ishan,
And interpretation of 54(3) also. Hello?
I'm sharing the judgment. Are you able to?
Yes. Interpretation of 54(3) also, which we will see what the honorable judge has held, is also a reasonable view. You can't say it is unreasonable. Correct? So, can you just, I just want to show them the provisions which are there in the judgment only. So, if you can just take us to page 7 of the judgment. Prashant.
Yes, I'm getting there. Is it visible?
No, Baba, I am not able to see anything. I wanted to say this because I don't want the participants to feel that I'm going to come into the session with the feeling that I'm going to criticize the judgment. I'm going to analyze the judgment. But at the very outset, I will say that the judgment is extremely well written. It is, according to me, you may have another view, but what the judgment presents a reasonable view that the judge has taken. And also, before we start, again, this is because I remember this, there is always something called a presumption of constitutionality. And the reason is this: you vote in elections and you bring in your elected representatives in parliament. Once you do that, it is presumed that the people that you voted for will act in your best interests first, and that people that you voted for will not transgress the constitutional limit within which they have to work. Therefore, there is something called a presumption of constitutionality in case of an elected legislature. When you come to rules, in case of rules also, the presumption of constitutionality applies because the people you voted for chose some commissioner or some other body. They trusted that body and they gave them the rule making power. They delegated their legislative power. So in law, there is always a fiction. It is not something which is peculiar to tax law. It applies everywhere. There is always a fiction that your elected representatives, if they have found out one person or one body called GST Council or whatever, to make rules, then they will carefully and with circumspection exercise their powers. Therefore, this is what is called presumption of constitutionality. So the court always starts with the presumption that the act or the rules are valid. It is on the petitioner, the burden is on petitioner to show that the act or rule is invalid or is unconstitutional, number one. Second, the burden cannot be discharged only on the basis of probabilities or balance of probabilities. You have to make a clear case. If there is any scope for interpretation, any scope for doubt, etc., the court will refuse to strike down legislation. We have to understand that the people who are framing the laws are again the elected representatives, whereas judges are unelected representatives. Therefore, they have to control themselves. The basis of all this presumption of constitutionality is this, that the judges have to control themselves. It is your fault that you voted for a government. I'm not targeting any particular government. ये तो पिछले government में भी यही चलता था. आड़े तेड़े rules आते थे, आड़े तेड़े sections आते थे. But it is really your fault that you have elected people who are not making laws properly. And the courts cannot sit in judgment over each and everything and try to give you to redress everyone's grievances. It is only when you make a very clear case कि नहीं ये unconstitutional है, there is no scope for doubt, there is no scope for any other view. It is only and only in that case that the court declares something ultra vires. In this case, as I will show, there was always scope for doubt whether the Gujarat court was correct or even whether the Madras, some of the observations may not have been correct. There was never a very clear case made out कि 54(3) के अंदर अनवर्टेड ड्यूटी का इनपुट सर्विस का क्रेडिट नहीं मिलना चाहिए. Now let us go to the provisions. Page 7, can you just थोड़ा बड़ा करो ना यार, दिखना तो चाहिए. प्रशांत.
Yes. Is it visible now?
Hello.
Yes, yes. Is it visible properly?
नहीं आप मेरे को तो नहीं दिख रहा है भाई, इतना छोटा है वो.
Yes, participants are able to see it, sir.
Okay. Now see section 54(3). Subject to the provisions of section 10, a registered person may claim refund of any unutilized input tax credit at the end of any tax period. So this was the very fulcrum of the arguments. This was the very fulcrum of the arguments of the assessees, that this says you can get any unutilized input tax credit. then only the first proviso is relevant. There is a lot of discussion on the other two provisos. I don't think we need to go into that. Provided that no refund of unutilized input tax credit shall be allowed in cases other than zero rated supplies made without payment of tax, we are not concerned with that. Second, where the credit has accumulated on account of rate of tax on inputs being higher than the rate of tax on output supplies, other than nil rated or fully exempt supplies, except supplies of goods and services or both, as may be notified by the government on recommendations of the council. So the argument which was made was this, that the main provision says that you will get refund of any unutilized input tax credit, which means both, either credit of goods as well as services. However, the proviso says that you shall not be allowed where the credit has accumulated more on inputs due to a higher rate of tax on inputs than the rate of tax on output supplies. The argument which was made was this, that though the proviso when it uses the word inputs, it says inputs, not input supplies. Inputs is specifically defined as input excluding inputs means only input goods, not services. Therefore, the government was saying in court that this says that only input का आपका रेट अगर ऊपर होगा और आउटपुट सप्लाईज का रेट नीचे लोअर होगा तो only then you will get refund of the unutilized credit. However, it is not just an eligibility condition. Your actual credit refund also will be restricted to this amount. The assessee was saying that I should get any unutilized input tax credit ka refund. The only thing is to become eligible, you have to see whether inputs का rate ऊपर होना चाहिए और lower output supplies का rate नीचे होना चाहिए. When I cross the eligibility, then I should get any unutilized input tax credit. Whereas government was saying no, that proviso applies to both eligibility as well as the quantum of the refund that you will get. The court has interpreted this before we even go to rule 89.5. Because 89.5 में बहुत डिस्कस करके फायदा नहीं. The very fulcrum of their submission was कि 54.3 allows any unutilized input tax credit, and therefore rule 89.5 is wrong, correct? But the court has said, what has the court said? Court has said this, that the words in the proviso, proviso, provided no refund of unutilized input tax credit shall be allowed. They have said shall be allowed means it is not just eligibility, it also affects the very claim itself. So you can't claim only that refund. Correct? So even though in the main section it says any unutilized input tax credit, the proviso says you shall not be allowed to claim itself. It's not just only eligibility, it restricts both eligibility as well as the quantum of refund. So this is a very reasonable and fair view according to me. There are two views possible. What the assessee is saying is also reasonable view. What the government is saying is also reasonable view. But when it comes to constitutionality, you have to, if there are two views, then the view which supports validity is always preferred, not the view which will lead to the provision becoming ultra vires. Now, that being the case, once the court came to the conclusion that under rule 89.5, under section 54.3, both the section itself allows not only eligibility but also the quantum to be restricted, then of course then rule 89.5 was bound to be upheld. There is no question about that. But just for completeness sake, let us see that rule 89.5, which is on page, I believe it is on page 8 of our. हाँ, तो आपको इतना ही देखना है, ये जो नेट आईटीसी का डेफिनेशन है, Let us see, because this is the old definition. Let us see page 9. पेज 9 पे जो शुरू होता है लास्ट में और पेज 10 पे ऊपर. Prashant, can you just take it to page 10? Net ITC, that explanation which is made bold. Net ITC shall mean input tax credit availed on inputs during the relevant period other than the input tax credit availed for which refund is claimed under subrule A or B, 4A or 4B or both. So basically the challenge of the assessees was that the formula is trying to restrict the refund to only goods, whereas we are entitled to refund of both goods and services. Their argument, it may sound repetitive, but only for the sake of understanding, their argument was कि वो जो proviso है, which says that credit rate of tax on inputs is higher and rate of tax on output supplies is lower. They said this is only for eligibility. Once you cross that threshold of eligibility, then any refund of any unutilized credit का हमको refund मिलना चाहिए. Any unutilized credit means everything. The court has explained why in the main provision it says any unutilized credit, whereas in the proviso it is restricted. That is because the court says that there are two parts to this proviso. One is zero rated supply, and second is that this one, rate of tax on inputs being higher than the rate of tax on outputs. There are two situations. Because there were two situations in the main provision, they made a general reference to any unutilized input tax credit. But the real flesh which is there, the real restrictions are there in the proviso. And therefore, there is a restriction not only to be eligible, but also to actually get the refund. Having taken that view, Rule 89(5) was then bound to be upheld. We will just see some of the observations. We'll just see what reasoning has been given. I have already explained on allowed. Now, a lot of arguments were made on that All India Federation of Tax Practitioners, where they said that goods and services, there is a principle of equivalence. The goods and services have to be treated as equal. Then there was a lot of discussion on the Constitution Amendment Act, 101st Constitution Amendment, the statements of objects and reasons, seamless credit, destination-based consumption tax. The Supreme Court has said all of these are mere intentions. Whatever is expressed in your statement of objects and reasons, in your white paper, and other international textbooks saying that VAT is a destination-based consumption tax, then perfect GST, how should avoid cascading effect. These are mere good intentions, but until and unless the act itself by clear language translates it into a statute, till then the court cannot get into all these issues. In short, the court cannot use, for example, All India Federation of Tax Practitioners. It was said, just a general observation actually, it's not even, it's for arbiter dicta totally. It was said that goods and services have to be treated equal, that is the object of value added tax, etc., etc. That was in context of service tax. In fact, even in service tax, it was considered arbiter, because thereafter in Bengal Shrachi, Justice Nariman has clearly said that All India Federation of Tax Practitioners, the judgment which says a lot of things about the economic rationale of service tax or value added tax, etc., and how it has to be neutral and how it has to be avoid cascading effect, and all of that is pure economic theory. You cannot use that to strike down legislation. If I can just ask Prashant to directly go to para 58, I believe these observations are very good. That will clear up our understanding of the law also. Because in many conferences, many seminars, I keep on seeing various faculty also continuously referring to destination-based consumption tax, or to this principle of neutrality, etc., and saying ये आप challenge कर दो, ये destination based consumption tax के खिलाफ है, ये neutrality के खिलाफ है, इसके खिलाफ है, उसके खिलाफ है. But that is not how it is done. All of these are economic theories. They cannot be used in constitutional adjudication. Rather, let us just come directly to sections here. चलो section 58 से ही शुरू करते हैं. 58, I will not read out the whole thing. It talks about the doctrine of equivalence. Then section para 59 talks about how GST Council was under the Constitution, that is Article 279A6. It was given the mandate to come out with harmonized taxation structure. Then,
which page number we are?
Page number 88 is para 58. Then
Okay.
page number 89.
Yes. Yes, we are there.
Page 89.
We are on page 89.
Okay, I'll just read the first two lines of para 59. Subsection 6 of Article 279A has provided that while discharging its functions, the GST Council shall be guided by the need for a harmonized structure of goods and service tax, development of a harmonized national market for goods and services. Correct? Then somewhere down middle of the para, GST Council is intended to function towards the advancement of a harmonized structure for GST and market for goods and services. Contemporary doctrine would suggest that these objects of the fiscal regime may be furthered by bearing in mind the doctrine of equivalence, doctrine of neutrality, and the need of obviating secondary stage cascading effects. Now we'll go to page 90, where the judge has, Honorable Justice Chandrachud, has extracted from an international treatise about how the perfect GST or perfect value-added tax will try to achieve equivalence, neutrality, etc. I'm not reading the whole thing. But para 60 is very nice. I believe we should read the whole thing. The jurisprudential basis, para 60, the jurisprudential basis furnishes a depiction of the ideal state of existence of GST legislation within the purview of a modern economy as a destination-based tax. Kindly see what he says. He says these are all ideal principles, that this is what, perfect GST or a near perfect GST should look like, whatever has been written in the international textbook or whatever is, whatever that equivalence, etc. Go to the next line. But there can be no gainsaying the fact that fiscal legislation around the world, India being no exception, makes complex balances founded upon socio-economic complexities and diversities which permeate each society. The form which a GST legislation in any unitary state may take will vary considerably from its avatar in a nation such as India, where a dual system of GST law operates within the context of a federal structure. The ideal of a GST framework, which Article 279A6 embodies, has to be progressively realized. The doctrines which have been emphasized by counsel during the course of the arguments furnish the underlying rationale for the enactment of the law, but cannot furnish either a valid basis for judicial review of the legislation or make out a ground for invalidating a validly enacted law unless it infringes constitutional parameters. The same thing was said in Bengal Shrachi by Justice Nariman, that all your destination-based tax, etc., these are all ideal things. If the act achieves them, well and fine, but if it does not achieve them, you cannot use these theories to say that the act is unconstitutional. In our system of government, an act of parliament or rules can only be can be declared ultra vires. An act can be declared ultra vires only of the Constitution of India. So if there is something which the Constitution requires either expressly or impliedly, only then it can be declared ultra vires. Correct? You cannot use some foreign country में क्या कैसे करते हैं, then all these various doctrines, they are not constitutional doctrines first, they have no constitutional effect, they are mere economic doctrines, so you cannot use it for constitutional adjudication. Therefore he says that the doctrines which have been emphasized by counsel during the course of arguments furnish the underlying rationale for the enactment of the law, but cannot furnish either a valid basis for judicial review. Judicial review means to declare something ultra vires, or make out a ground for invalidating a validly enacted law unless it infringes constitutional parameters. While adopting the constitutional framework of GST regime, Parliament in the exercise of its constitutional power has had to make and draw balances to accommodate the interests of the states. Taxes on alcohol for human consumption and stamp duty provide a significant part of revenues of the state. Complex balances have to be drawn so as to accommodate the concerns of the states before bringing them within the umbrella of GST. These aspects must be borne in mind while assessing the jurisprudential vision and economic rationale for GST legislation. But abstract doctrine cannot be a ground for the court to undertake the task of redrawing the text or context of a statutory provision. This is clearly an area of law where judicial interpretation cannot be ahead of policy making. Fiscal policy ought not to be dictated through the judgments of the high courts or this court, for it is not the function of the court in the fiscal arena to compel Parliament to go further and to do more, for instance, by expanding the coverage of the legislation to liquor, stamp duty, and petroleum, or to bring in uniformity of rates. This would constitute an impermissible judicial encroachment on legislative power. Likewise, when the first proviso to section 54(3) has provided for a restriction on the entitlement to refund, it would be impermissible for the court to redraw the boundaries or to expand the provision for refund beyond what the legislature has provided. If the legislature has intended that the equivalence between goods and services should be progressively realized, and that for the purpose of determining whether the refund should be provided, a restriction of the kind which has been imposed in clause 2 of the provision should be enacted lies within the realm of policy. In short, and you will see this is a theme in many judgments relating to constitutional validity of tax legislation, that whatever rate of tax आपको credit देना है, नहीं देना है, कितना देना है, कितना, unless you know the tax itself is invalidly recovered, that tax is illegally recovered, तो उसका जो refund होता है, that is a constitutional right. However, आपको अगर exemption देना है, तो कितना exemption देना है, कितना नहीं देना है, all of that is a matter of policy and the court cannot get into it. This is a theme which we should remember, because again I encounter in a lot of matters when various chartered accountants or GST practitioners come to brief us, they get very perturbed saying that अरे ये ऐसा कैसा कर दिया, ये नहीं होना चाहिए, ये आप challenge कर दो, वो challenge कर दो. That is not how the constitutional adjudication works. There are, as the constitution, under the constitution, there are three organs. One, there is a parliament which makes the law. Then there is the executive which implements the law, and there is judiciary which merely interprets the law. So the judiciary can merely interpret the law. As a function of interpretation, they can say whether while interpreting the constitution and the law, if there is an inconsistency, then they can say that the law is invalid based on the interpretation of the constitution. But they cannot go beyond that limit and say कि नहीं नहीं ये बराबर नहीं है, ऐसा होना चाहिए था, this was better, this is not better, this is an anomaly, so therefore you should allow this or that, you should give this exemption or you should reduce this tax. That simply cannot be done. Okay. Just 1 minute. Then now on rule making power, whether the rule, they are, of course, because 54.3 was interpreted, the court said under 54.3, the main act itself allows refund to be taken away when your input services rate is higher than output supplies. That the act does not allow. Of course, the challenge to the rule also failed. However, there are some observations also which are made on rule making power, which again I have received a lot of messages for some from advocates themselves saying कि कोर्ट ने बहुत ओवर एक्सपांसिव ये दे दिया, अभी तो ये कुछ भी रूल लाएंगे. ऐसा नहीं है, कोर्ट ने ये नहीं बोला है. कोर्ट ने इतना ही बोला है कि the bringing a formula is within their power, because without a formula the levy will not work at all. Therefore, when the act itself requires that, for example, if you have many various kinds of supplies, export as well as inverted duty, of course, there has to be some formula to segregate them. You cannot say that they cannot bring the formula only and in each and every case, there on interpretation, they will have to decide. No, there has to be some uniformity. Otherwise, that may itself create arbitrary result. एक को देगा कोई assessing officer, एक को देगा refund, दूसरे को नहीं देगा. So that is the only thing I think which the judgment said. I don't believe I have received at least I think 15 messages from various advocates, not even chartered accountants, GSTPs, saying कि ये इन्होंने तो rule making power एकदम wide कर दिया. Wide bid कुछ किया नहीं है. There are already judgments saying that rule making authority has the power to prescribe formula, because without the formula, this act itself will not be able to work. Then from para 95 onwards, some anomalies have been pointed out in the formula. That also the court has said that court has accepted that there are anomalies in the formula. We'll just read that. It's a very good exposition actually. If Prashant, you can come to page 123, it's worth reading that example which has been given.
We are there.
Para 97, Mr. G. Natarajan's submission indicates an aberration where a registered person with a single product with an inverted duty structure is neither able to use the unutilized ITC for the payment of tax on output supply, nor is allowed a refund. On the other hand, a registered person with products involving an inverted duty structure or otherwise is in a position to utilize the ITC availed on input services for payment of tax on turnover not having an inverted RAT structure. So basically this was what people were doing was this, and which in fact we also have advised clients, because the rule does not say you can't do that. कि जहां पे आपका इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी स्ट्रक्चर के वजह से 54.3 और 89 की फाई के वजह से आपका इनपुट सर्विसेज का अटक रहा है रिफंड, यू यूज इट समवेयर एल्स, यू यूज इट फर्स्ट, आप यूज कर दो, वो कम जितना कम कर सकते हो कम कर दो और बाद में रिफंड लो जो गुड्स एलिमेंट्स का है. So he has basically then given an example, and he has shown that there is this aberration. The court, the additional solicitor general also accepted it, court also accepted it, but again the court said that we can't do anything. This all has to be done by parliament or the rule making authority. We cannot cure all these formulas. Again, the principle is that the court can only strike down a legislation. They cannot actually make changes in it. So if the formula is bad, for example, formula is not had some anomalies, the court has no power to actually modify it. Court only has the power to पूरा का पूरा डस्टबिन में डाल दे, नहीं तो पूरा का पूरा अपहोल्ड करे. बीच का कोई पावर ही नहीं है कोर्ट के पास. But we'll just see this table which is there on page 124. Prashant, 124 निकालो ना यार. There are two columns. Taxpayer having only turnover of inverted rate structure, then taxpayer having both turnover of inverted rate structure and other turnover. Now, first is value of supply of goods attracting 5% GST, turnover having inverted rate structure, correct? Then that is 50 lakhs, 50 lakhs. Then second is value of supply of goods not having any inverted rate structure. तो पहले वाले column में तो सिर्फ प्योरली इन्वर्टेड है, दूसरे वाले कॉलम में इन्वर्टेड एज वेल एज नॉन इन्वर्टेड का टर्नओवर है, इसलिए 50 लाख 50 लाख यानी 50-50 हो गया. Then your adjusted total turnover will be the total of these two. Then GST payable at 5% on turnover having inverted rate structure 5%. तो ये 2,50,000 2,50,000 आ गया. Then 18% turnover not having inverted rate structure. So non-inverted के लिए 18%. तो वो पहले वाले कॉलम में तो non-inverted है ही नहीं, दूसरे वाले कॉलम में non-inverted है, तो वो 18% आ गया आपका. ये 9 lakhs आ गया. Then ITC on inputs availed during the tax period. Then they have given to this one, yeah, examples. Then if you apply the formula, refund entitlement as per the formula. So under the first case where you have only inverted rate ka, this one, you have only inverted rate ka turnover. If you just see ITC on inputs availed during the tax period is 3 lakhs and ITC on input services is 50,000. And in the second column, it is 6 lakhs and 1 lakh. And the refund which comes according to the formula, in the first case is only 50,000. And in the second case also, it is only 50,000. Though there is both turnover of inverted as well as other turnover. Now in the remarks he has explained, in the first column, the ITC of rupees 50,000 availed on input services is neither allowed as refund nor used for payment of tax on output supply but allowed to accumulate. Why is this? This is because in the first column there is no other non-inverted turnover. अगर inverted turnover होता तो वो ITC वो पहले ही divert कर चुका होता. Correct, and then this problem would not have arisen. It is because the whole thing is in inverted structure, therefore वो input services का accumulate होते जाता है. In the second column he writes the balance input credit of 3 lakhs and the entire credit of rupees 1 lakh availed on input services can be used for payment of tax not having any non-inverted turnover. So this is basically what he showed. This is an aberration. I hope he had not shown it because all of us were using this anomaly. Now that they have shown it, I am sure the GST Council is going to plug it because the court has also said this is an aberration, this is an anomaly. And there, when the court has said that the GST Council has to decide it, the court cannot do anything. So this, in short, was the overall discussion on this judgment. Now, if anyone has any questions, please do ask. I don't know whether these participants can be unmuted. Is it possible
No.
to unmute them?
No. They can ask questions in the question answer box. If anybody has questions, please put your
questions.
Yes, there is one question. I will read it out. Sir, the statement of intentions announced at the time of introduction of the law, is this not an estoppel of government intention?
It is not. It is certainly not. You understand one thing, estoppel, that is also there is a Justice Nariman's judgment on that. Estoppel can only be used against the executive authorities, administrative authorities. There is no estoppel for Parliament. Firstly, Parliament is a sovereign legislative body. They can do anything and everything they want except infringe your fundamental rights. Now, estoppel is not a fundamental right, so it does not bind them.
Next question
Secondly, intent, whatever is there in statements of objects and reasons, if it is conflicting with clear words which are there in the statute, then the objects and reasons does not apply.
Okay, next question is denying ITC on input services results indirectly raise / increase GST rate of final product which is inverted in nature. Example, garments are necessary item levy at 5%, but due to disallow of refund on input services causes higher rate of GST instead of 5%.
तो क्या कर सकते हैं इसमें? We can't help it. This is what it is.
I think if the participants are having more questions, they can just put their questions in the comment box or question answer area. I don't think there are more questions, sir.
Oh, it's हाँ, judgment ही ऐसा है, इसमें क्या question करेंगे? You have to accept it and move on.
Correct.
चलो, then we'll end the session. Prashant.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, sir. Thank you so much for providing the deliberation on the judgment, sir. And we
Okay.
also had special question answer sessions also. I hope everyone has got a detailed overview of recent Supreme Court judgment. In the end, I must thank the organizing team and all the participants for their active participation for the program. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, everyone. चलो.